And blast off. Yes, here we go. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is going to be such a special day. We are delighted to welcome you to the very first single genre MSWL Live panel. More than 2,000 of you voted for fantasy. Hooray! And we are so happy to be here with you. I'm Jessica Sinsheimer, agent at Context Literary, co-founder of MSWL, Manuscript Wishlist, and our educational sister company, the Manuscript Academy. So we are a way to find agents, a way to help you get help directly from agents, and a community of, if we dare say so, some of the loveliest, most talented writers in the business. Today is all about finding what agents want within genres, so you can better understand their tastes and trends and the genre, and how agents think. We have some really lovely agents. Hooray! Julie, our co-founder, has been kind enough to join us from her book tour. Julie, tell us about you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm coming from Los Angeles today versus Maine. I'm so happy to be here. Fantasy is always one of our favorite things to dive into. I can't wait. And it's, once again, I am the co-founder of the Manuscript Academy, and it's such a pleasure to be here.
Yay, Julie! Okay, so without further ado, let me briefly introduce what we will be doing today. So today we have 4 top fantasy agents here to teach a class, do a live query critique, lead a writing exercise, host a game show, and it all comes with prizes.
Panelists, please introduce yourselves. Eric, you first.
Hey everyone, my name's Eric Smith. I'm an agent at PS Literary, where I've been working on all kinds of fun and unique and unconventional books for the last 10 years. When I'm not busy agenting, I sometimes write my own books. And that sums me up pretty nicely.
So what are you looking for in general and in fantasy?
Oh goodness. In fantasy, my big word is accessible, right? I like fantasy that anyone can pick up, even if they don't like fantasy, right? So not door stoppers, give me under 100K, make it more about the character and less about the world building. Anything that feels like I'm reading like who are some of my favorite fantasy people? Like a shorter Chuck Wendig novel or a shorter Delilah Dawson novel, or any of my lovely clients like Julia Ember, that will firmly grab me. So accessible, short, easy to jump into, more about the character.
Yay, and in general, just all the things you want this year.
Ooh, I mean, in general, I'm all over the place. I work on middle grade, I work on young adults, both in fiction and nonfiction. On the adult side, I like genre blending books that are really hard to explain. If it's a book I have to go like this when I'm trying to tell people about it, like just stick with me, it's going to be interesting. That means it's for me. I love all kinds of nonfiction, from essay collections to pop history to wellness books. If you have a hard time figuring out where your book belongs on the bookshelf, it probably belongs in my inbox. So send me that weird stuff.
I love that. There's so much pressure for everyone to know exactly where their book would be shelved. And frankly, I think so much of that pressure is unnecessary. Thanks for proving that, Eric.
No problem.
And Janessa, tell us about you.
Hi, I'm Jenissa Graham, and I am an agent and sub-rights manager at BookEnds Literary Agency. Right now, I am looking for dark fantasy. So big worlds, a little bit opposite from Eric, but big worlds, big plots, as well as a really good character arc with a point of view that we haven't seen yet. Outside of fantasy, I acquire middle grade all the way up to adult, and I'm looking for dystopia, genre blending thrillers, heartbreaking contemporaries, and anything with an epistolary structure.
Wow. Do you have like one dream project for this year?
I think epistolary. I'm still looking to find another one in like a middle grade, something heartbreaking.
I love this. We are breaking myths here. A lot of people are like, no, it must be shelved easily. No, you can't be epistolary. But hey, proof that the industry is, in fact, subjective. Bridget, tell us about you.
Hi, I'm Bridget Smith, no relation to Eric. I'm an agent at JABberwocky, where I represent adult and YA fantasy. And so what I'm looking for in fantasy right now falls into 2 main buckets. And the first is big, smart, character-driven, very well-written second world fantasy, preferably with something to say. On my list, that would be something like Empire of Exiles by Aaron M. Evans, or The Nine by Tracy Townsend, or outside fantasy, These Burning Stars by Bethany Jacobs in sci-fi, or A Tip for the Hangman by Alison Epstein in historical fiction. books that ask a lot of the reader but reward you amply for it. And the second is at the other end of the spectrum, which is fun, devourable, voicey books, the kind where you sit down to read and look up what feels like 15 minutes later and realize you're 100 pages in. So this is things like the Scholomance series by Naomi Novik or the Last Binding trilogy by Freya Marsk. And on my list, it's going to be something like C.M. Wagner's books or Lady Eve's Last Con by Rebecca Fremel. But I'm also always a sucker for historical fantasy, so please keep me in mind for that as well.
Yay! And in general, what else are you looking for?
So in addition to fantasy, at this point I'm representing YA and adult. In addition to fantasy, looking for science fiction. Historical fiction is good, and some like romancy stuff, rom-coms and that field as well.
And for those who are just joining us, would you define second world fantasy?
A second world fantasy is fantasy that takes place in a world that is not this one. It's a wholly created world, high fantasy, basically, but something where you have constructed a whole world that isn't ours.
Yay! Thank you so much, Bridget. Okay, and last but certainly not least, someone who has a guitar in her background she's going to use in 2 hours. Kelly, tell us about you.
I am Kelly Van Sant. I am a literary agent at KT Literary, and I am also our contracts manager over there. I've been working in publishing in various roles for over 20 years, worked for publishers, different agencies, and I'm very happy with my current role. Within fantasy, I am really someone who loves everything. I love the perspective. I love the spectrum of anything propulsive to anything contemplative. So whether it's really, fast-paced, gripping, plot-driven, to something quieter, more character-driven, both of those things really, really appeal to me. I love genre blends, all subcategories of fantasy, cozy fantasy, romantasy, paranormal or urban fantasy. I would love to see come back. But historical fantasy, anything mixed with fantasy is my jam. I love it all. I'm really interested in seeing innovative magic systems. Like, for example, the Bone Shard Daughter, I thought had a really unique magic system, unlike anything I'd seen before. So I'm really interested in seeing fresh takes on the way that magic works within these worlds. Like a lot of fantasy lovers, I love courtly and political intrigue, but I'm also really interested in fantasies that center on common people. I'd love to see more thieves guilds. I'd love to see more like just everyday people dealing with, all kinds of stuff in a fantasy setting. Outside of fantasy, I represent adult, young adult, and topic-specific nonfiction on esoteric and occult witchcraft topics, including tarot and astrology. And I represent all genres for adult and young adult. So yeah, that's it.
I love it. What a magical panel. Thank you all so much for being here. Okay, so we have a big to-do list today, but first up we have Eric Smith with a talk about prologues. Eric, tell us why you chose this topic.
Oh boy. Well, I chose this. I'm loading up my little slides here. Specifically because I did a little thing on social media about it, and it seemed to set a couple of people off, and people were a little surprised and a little shocked that prologues were okay, which I find very funny because if you've ever read a novel in your life, lots of books have prologues, right? There are tons of them. But there seems to be this odd disconnect where people think, oh, I see a lot of agents talking about how they don't like prologues. That means prologues are bad and I can never use them. There are certain kinds of prologues that are bad, and that's why we talk about them in that sort of way. I'm very guilty of it. I make fun of prologues all the time, even though I am pro prologue. Now let me see. I'm going to share my little screen here. Oh my God, I have a million windows open. What is wrong with me?
We all do it, Eric. It's okay. I've got at least 100 at any given time.
I'm trying to get it to let me share my presentation. There we go. Okay. And share. Is that working?
Yeah, looks great.
You see my spicy peppers?
Yep.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So, Yeah, my quick little hot take on prologues for my 10 minutes that I have with you. Again, I see it all the time on social media where agents and editors are saying all prologues are terrible and authors should never have them, and that is not the case. We are mostly joking, and it is mostly a subjective thing. A casual glimpse into the books in my agent life reveal many, many prologues. So why do we constantly see agents and editors talking down about them in books? And this is especially important for those of you who are writing genre fiction, fantasy, or science fiction, where sometimes a prologue can do a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of good work. So the bad prologues that I tend to see do the things that we don't like to see happening in almost any novel, where we're maybe starting off in a dream or something, right? Really great pages do something important where they get us established in the character, the setting, maybe a little sense of the stakes, and maybe a little sense of why our character can't walk away from whatever is happening, right? If your prologue isn't doing those things and it's, again, starting off in a dream, well, we're not really taking the time to get us grounded in the world, right? We have to start all over again come chapter one. If your prologue is opening with something like, when I fought in the war of many battles 200 years ago and survived, now I will tell you my tale. What that basically does is ruin your stakes, right? You're telling me out of the gate that your main character is okay. That the next 100,000 word doorstopper I'm going to read doesn't really matter because the character survives and nothing bad happens. Now, I'm also very aware that a lot of books do kick off like that, where the character is saying something like, Dear reader, X and Y. I'm just not a big fan of that because I know everything turns out okay. So be careful with an opening like that. Also, if the prologue opens in a way where it introduces us to a character that we're simply never going to see again, maybe they die or something, right? Like, what is the point of that? We're not getting grounded in the character. We're not getting grounded in the world. We're just getting this sort of throwaway moment, right? Really good prologues do the things that really great first pages do, right? They get us grounded in a bit of history. They get us grounded in the character. Keyword here is grounded, by the way. That's the word of the day. They get us invested and they make us ask good questions while establishing the world. So good prologues do exist, I promise. And I want to show a couple of quick examples. I'm not going to read all of them because again, I have 10 minutes to talk to all of you. But this is a good sci-fi example for everybody. So Here and Now and Then by my author Mike Chen is the story of a time travel agent who gets trapped in the past and has to raise a family, start a new life, until he's suddenly rocketed back to the future, where it's only been a few days, instead of, 2 decades where he's been trapped in the present. The prologue shows his character racing across skyscrapers, chasing a fugitive. We know that his tech is damaged, the stuff that's going to potentially take him back to the future, but he's trying not to worry about it. He's like, I got to do my job. I got to catch this guy. Everything's going to be fine. And then chapter one opens, and lo and behold, it's not fine. And it is 20 years later, and his wife can't stand him, and he's late to pick up his kid from soccer practice. It does something that's very funny. It gives us this really jarring moment that adds a lot of humor, and that's sort of the showcase thing of this book. There's a lot of humor in this story, but it also firmly establishes the world. It establishes the character's backstory. It gives us so much to make us understand the book and gives us some huge stakes because what happens if he does go back home now? Another prologue I want to showcase is for Rise of the Red Hand by Olivia Chadha. We are slowly going into more genre, as you can see. We got a cybernetic arm here. We have a big, scary world in the background. So the first chapter is a prologue that kicks off 5 days into the future. So it's further into the book, with our main character being carted away to a prison. And there's this really terrifying scene where this pregnant woman jumps off of the prison cart and off a cliff rather than being taken by the villains. What this prologue does is it shows us our main character, it shows us the stakes, it shows us the world and how horrifying it is before we even get to them. Because the beginning pages of the book, when we get to chapter one, they aren't as harrowing, right? We're seeing the slums that the main character lives in, we're seeing the tech, we're seeing all this stuff, and it doesn't really seem that terrible. But what the prologue does is it sets us up to understand just how bad it all actually is. And the last one, I want to show you a fantasy prologue that is maybe the most upsetting prologue I have in any of my client books. So Ruin Song is about two teen girls who live in a realm where magic is sung. That's how the magic system works. You sing your magic, and some people can heal people, some people can, make amazing food. There's all kinds of wild powers. But Cadence's power is she can set things on fire. And she has the most powerful voice in all the kingdom. And the book opens up with her as she's like 8 years old. She's under the control of this queen. She's sitting there with her puppy. Things seem like they're okay. And then the queen comes over with a young boy and basically says, use your power on him or I'm going to kill your dog. And she really isn't aware of what her power is like yet. She really hasn't like mastered it yet. She's afraid that something bad's going to happen to her dog. She's 8 years old. She sings and then she melts the boy. And it is horrifying and it is terrible. And you get really grounded in what's going on with this character, what's going on with this world, what the magic system is like, what the stakes are like for her really early on, because it's pretty clear that she's an abused child. We get grounded in all of those things in 5 really horrifying pages. So if your prologue isn't doing these things where it's giving us something to get grounded in, it's giving us a sense of stakes, it's giving us a sense of the world, the character, the problems, then your prologue probably needs to pack it up and it probably needs to go. So I'm going to stop sharing right now. That's my little prologue shtick. I hope I didn't go over too long, but maybe.
No, you're good. There's time actually for a few prologue specific questions.
Yes.
How long is too long for a prologue in general? I've seen 1 paragraph prologues and 10-page ones.
Oh, I mean, both of those feel fine to me, right? So Julia Ember's Ruin Song prologue, I think, is a good 10 pages long. While Mike Chen's, I think maybe it's 5, but then I have a YA contemporary. Where are you? Where the prologue is a page. So yes, that's a page prologue, and it was perfectly fine. So really up to you and what you need to tell to get all of those things across.
Nice. Okay, this is a beautiful way of putting it. Is it safe to say that a good prologue to a story is like kindling for a fire?
Oh, that's
Ooh,
amazing.
that's
Yeah, Tim?
lovely. Yes, absolutely, Tim.
Oh my goodness, we have so many good questions here. My prologue is a short quote from a character that gives very bare bones world building. We don't meet the character until quite far in. The purpose is to give grounding before opening with the main character. Interesting. How do you feel about that?
I mean, that sounds fine. I would worry about the quote, I guess. I don't know what the actual page looks like, but if it's just like an opening of like dialogue there, uh, I don't know. I'm torn. It would have to be very, very gripping, I think. I see someone asking about A Song of Ice and Fire. That's an anomaly in terms of publishing. So I don't know. It's a doorstopper. That book is too big for me. I'm never gonna read it. So I don't
I,
know.
I smile every time you say doorstopper. That's so funny.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on a prologue that's a snippet from the past? For example, it shows an important event and the reader meets the characters at a younger age.
Perfectly fine. Ruin Song that I just showed everybody. She's 8 years old, and then the book picks up when they're 17. So perfectly fine.
All caps. Who decided prologues are bad?
I don't know. I like them. I like them when they do the work that they're supposed to do. When they don't do the work that they're supposed to, that's when they're bad. That's when it can potentially like ruin the opening of your book.
Can I ask a question? Because I think that I've seen this with fantasy writers. What happens when the prologue doesn't match up with the query letter? Do you think that in the submission process, the writer should just start with chapter 1 and send the prologue later, or send the
Ooh.
prologue knowing that it doesn't totally match up?
So I think I hear this a lot where people are like, oh, I don't know if I should send my first 10 pages because my first 8 pages are a prologue. Maybe I should cut my prologue. If you're feeling like that, the prologue should go. Like you should cut the prologue if it's tripping you up like that. I just saw someone mention Robert Jordan. Friends, I am not that fantasy reader. I don't like Robert Jordan or George R. R. Martin. Like if it's over 100K, I'm never gonna read it. My life is too short. I have a child.
Okay, one last prologue question to squeak in under the timer. Is it okay for your prologue to have a different voice or narrator than the rest of the story? Can it be
Ooh.
omniscient story first person?
That's so hard because we do see that done really well with other books, like when it's a oh goodness, what book does that? Where the character is death and it feels different. Isn't that the Book Thief? Doesn't the Book Thief does that, maybe, I think. Like if it's done really well, sure. Um, just make sure it's done really well, I would say, because there are books that do it really well.
Okay, so in general, if you do it well, go for it.
Oh yeah. Man,
I
I see
love
the
that.
Yeah,
questions
no
rapid fire in the
worries.
chat.
Just do it
So,
better than anyone else on the planet and you'll be fine.
and how do you know if you're doing it well?
Ooh. I mean, your beta readers ideally are telling you that you're doing it well, right? Yeah. Oh man, there's lots of stuff in the chat. I might chit chat with some people in here. Am I allowed to do that, or am I
Of
going to get in
course you
trouble?
can. Of course you can. Okay, so we'll keep it moving on the screen. But yes, Eric, please stay in the chat and befriend everybody. Next up, we have Jenissa Graham. Janissa, you have a writing prompt. Come on down.
Hello. Yes, I do have a writing prompt, and I'm really excited to talk about fantasy, and even if it's not something really big in world building, something that is accessible. And a lot of the fantasy and for middle grade and YA that I read right now, we are experiencing ordinary characters who are falling into extraordinary worlds and situations. And so that's again discovering the world for the first time. One book I read this year was The City of Stardust by Georgia Summers, and that came out by Orbit Red Hook, and that is more of a portal fantasy with you're able to have a key and unlock a door to go anywhere. And so just being able to really find those small moments of magic in contemporary and urban settings, and just finding in everyday things. So if you are someone who loves accessible fantasy or is actually struggling to create a world magic system, kind of like an N.K. Jemisin, a good way to dip your toe in is to kind of have that main character fall unexpectedly into a new world. And so we do have a prompt. I don't know if you want to put it up.
Yeah, so just a quick note, everybody. Janissa will choose one winner after the writing period has ended. You will have 7 minutes to answer this prompt. Janissa will choose one winner who will receive a query consultation with the faculty, agent, or editor of their choice. If you're curious about our fantasy faculty, I'm putting a link in the chat here so you can just browse and see, who is available to talk to. And Janissa, tell us about your prompt, and I will put the cute little graphic on the screen as you talk.
Perfect. So I want to do something very portal fantasy. So we're going to have you have a main character falls into their favorite painting and everything comes to life. And so even if you don't want to be their favorite painting, I think this is a good place to kind of balance world building as well as character arc. So if this is the main character's favorite painting, why? And how are they now experiencing it in this whole new world? Just matters for character development, and I think that's kind of balancing out the story. And if it is their first time seeing this painting, now how they step inside, how they're going to get their way out of it. And I think being able to kind of see it on the other side is a cool way to really spark those fantasy elements.
Okay, great. So I'm going to set a timer for 7 minutes. I recommend that you use something like Microsoft Word or Google Docs to type it in, and then you can put your paragraph or so in the chat for Janissa to choose from. Okay, I'm setting a timer, and we will see you in 7 minutes. Okay, that is time for our 7 minutes. So if you could please start posting in the chat. What we've got already is absolutely amazing. I am so impressed with all of you. They're beautiful, they're spooky, they're using all kinds of incredible sensory language. I'm so proud of you. Okay, so Janissa will choose her favorite as we go through the next presenter, and we'll have our winner announced at the end of the next presentation. Wow, they're coming in so fast. Yes, please put them in the chat if you haven't already. Okay, next up we have Bridget Smith with a query critique. Several hundred of you applied for this position. We are so proud of you. It was so generous of you to agree to come up in front of our audience and turn your query into a learning tool. Thank you. So yeah, it is a great honor to be chosen. Bridget, who did you choose for your query?
I chose Alyssa LaHaye.
Okay, Alyssa, come on down. Hi, Alyssa. Congratulations.
Yeah, welcome, Alyssa.
Thank you so much.
This is so cool. I mean, as you heard, hundreds and hundreds of people applied and we chose, well, Bridget chose you. Congratulations. Bridget, do you want to share your screen and then we can follow along? And Alyssa, would you read so we can hear what everything is supposed to sound like?
Okay. I'm excited about this one because it's my favorite sort of critique to do, where it seems like you figured out the basic structure of a query, but can't quite crack how to apply it to your own book yet, which is the stage where I can help you the most. So I'm really excited about this. Alyssa, will you read your query for us?
Yes. All right. So the gods died and took their magic with them, or so everyone thought. For 20 years, Lyra Jewel, the would-be queen of Aquilani, has wasted away as a political prisoner of the Orphean Empire. Back home, her brother, Prince Jasper, secretly trained a group of young orphans to harness the long-forgotten power, waiting for the right time to reclaim their freedom. Meanwhile, Crown Princess Fayora Volpra prepares to ascend her grandfather's throne. Desperate to gain his approval and determined to stop the Aquilani rebellion before it can begin, she sets off with a mission: secure an engagement with the Prince of Aquilani or kill him. When Vayora is captured by the prince's loyal students in a bid to trade for their queen, she is forced to confront not only her mutinous heart, but the true cost of the crown she stands to inherit. Navigating tenuous alliances, deadly betrayals, and a simmering attraction to her mysterious captor, Vayora must choose between her heart and her throne, with the fate of their kind in the balance.
Okay, so thank you so much for sharing this with me and with the group. I'm going to sort of go through my thoughts as I was reading this, and we can then start talking about how to improve it. So first off, when you start, the first character you name in the query reads like the main character. So this is a situation where I'm going to expect to follow this person through the story, and Lyra Jewel doesn't really get any agency in the story. We see her mentioned by name as like an object, a bid to exchange for their queen, and that's the only time she comes back. So I don't think she should be first in the query. I think that she either needs to come up later or maybe be left out, depending on how it what factors in here. So we're going to talk about that once we get through later. Okay, and now we get to Crown Princess Vayora Volpra, and she immediately takes over the pitch. Very strong main character energy here. I'm looking at this and saying, okay, so this is the actual character that we are going to be following. Is that correct?
It is correct, yes.
Okay, great. So we're going to want to start with her. She's the one driving the book. She's the one we're following. She's the one we care about. You want to get her right up front, and keep the focus on her. So as I get down here, I'm putting the clues together here that Vayora's crown princess, the throne she's going to be taking, is the Orphean Empire. I shouldn't have to put clues together to get that. That's the kind of thing that I need to know right up front, because that tells me how these characters intersect with each other and the ways that their stakes and their goals are opposite each other or related to each other. And so that's something that you really want to convey right up front. Okay, and then we get to a simmering attraction to her mysterious captor. I'm a little confused by this because the context clues are telling me that her captor is actually the man she's supposed to be marrying anyway. And so that I can totally understand why that would cause all kinds of internal turmoil. And she might be like, I am supposed to marry this guy and I find him very attractive, but I have this problem where he kidnapped me. And that could be really fun, but I'm also not seeing how that causes any external impediments, or like why she would have to choose as a result of that, because it sounds like actually the external factors are lining up very conveniently for her.
Yeah, so this is actually, I'm glad you called this out, because this has been one of my biggest problems in working on and reworking this query, is it's actually not that prince that kidnaps her and that she falls for. It's someone else.
Okay. So we're going to want to meet that person in the query.
Yes. Yep.
Yes, one of the big things here is you've got these sort of two sentences that are actually, this is what we want the story to focus on.
Mhm.
Her mutinous heart, what is the problem that she's facing here? What are the alliances, the betrayals? We want to see the specifics about all of this. So if we start with Viora, and she is heading off to, so one of my questions here is going to be, why are they trying to stop the rebellion this way when they already hold the Aquilani queen
Mhm.
as prisoner?
Yes. So they're holding her, they've been holding her a prisoner. That was a trade that was made 20 years prior. And her brother, the prince, is causing, and his students are causing trouble back home. And they haven't been able to capture them and nail them down. So, and because the queen has been gone for these 20 years, she's not really a bartering tool anymore. They can't really do much with her. So they need to get to the people that are actually the problem back home.
Okay. Because yes, if I were holding a hostage, I would, and her people were rebelling, I would execute the hostage. So we're going to want to sort of get a sense of like why this is not actually going to be a solution. And I mean, the fact that so I'm going to want to, I can get a little bit about why she wants to subdue this rebellion, just from the fact that she's the heir. Like she obviously does not want to inherit a kingdom that's tearing itself apart. That's just going to be a really terrible way to start off your rule. Could also end in your own death. Like obviously not great. So we are going to want to start with her. And like, I think you can get in the information about both the prisoner and her brother Jasper. All of this, I think you're going to want to have in like 2 to 3 sentences in an opening paragraph. You're going to start with Viora. You're going to explain who she is. And you're going to, so Prince Jasper is the prince that she is supposed to either marry or kill, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So yeah, you can have a lot of fun setting this up right off the bat, where Princess Viora is set to take the throne of the Orphean Empire, but meanwhile there is a rebellion brewing from the subjugated Aquilani people, whose queen they hold as a political hostage. This has not stopped her brother Jasper from fomenting rebellion and training these groups of rebels. So in order to subdue this, Viora is either has one mission. She is either going to marry him or kill him. Fun setup, just a couple sentences right up top. And then you can get to, but while she's on her way, she's captured by the prince's students. So what happens specifically in the plot after she's captured?
So that's going to be the majority of the book. She's captured. They take her, this group called the Aquile, and they take her up to the mountains where they basically hold her hostage, but they're not treating her terribly because the intention is not to harm her or torture her or anything. You know, she's meant to be a bartering chip to get their queen back. And so, and meanwhile, Jasper is not there. He is missing. He is somewhere else. He's MIA. And so they have her up there until one of the kids of one of their own gets captured down in the city by the Imperial guards. And so they bring her down to get the kid back. And then because she's proven herself trustworthy, they keep her and kind of introduce her to the country and the world and what all is going on there. She's never left the capital to this point, so she's only known what she's been told, which is of course not the full picture. And so throughout all of this, she's falling in love with these people and this country. And then they have this big festival to honor their goddess at one point, and that's when Jasper is coming back. And during that festival, they are attacked. And because she was kidnapped, the army comes down too. And she had maneuvered and said everything is fine, but nobody believed her. So they come and they attack. And she gets kidnapped. The actual love interest, or she doesn't get kidnapped, the love interest gets captured, and she basically barters for his life, and she'll go back. And then from there, she goes back and kind of realizes all along that her grandfather, the emperor, isn't who she thought he was, has kind of bad intentions. He's very upset with her based on the way everything went down, and basically determines that this isn't what she wants. This isn't the country she wants, or the empire she wants to lead. And has to choose. In the end, they want her to kill the love interest, and she has to decide if she's going to do that and keep her throne, or if she's going to set him free.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I know exactly how we're going to fix this. So you're going to say but before she can reach the prince, she is captured by by a band of rebels, taught by him, but not operating under his aegis. And the time she spends with them blows open her understanding of this country that she has spent her whole life planning to rule. You're going to introduce us to the actual love interest by name and by context of who he is. And you're going to tell us a little bit about the time they spend together, and how it changes just her complete understanding of the country, her role in it, and her grandfather's role in it. You don't need to get into any more specifics about the festival or whatever, but you can say but she's, in the meantime, she has not succeeded in subduing the rebellion, and she's currently captive. So obviously her grandfather is going to come down on the band of rebels who are holding his heir hostage. And so when this clash happens, she has to make a decision about what she wants the future of the country to be. Her own future and the future of the country.
Bridget, I love it. This was 10 minutes. Would you like to throw anything else in? I'm so proud of you both. It's so nice to watch all of this take shape, and this is not an easy thing to do.
I appreciate it so much though, because this is one of those things I've been reworking it and trying new things with it. So it's good to finally hear actual concrete feedback.
Yes, it's I could tell you were sort of stuck with it. And so that's really fun for me to sort of get to talk to you and figure out what the actual core of the story is and how we can get there through the pitch.
Thank you so much.
Lots
Bridget,
of love in the chat here too.
Can you give us one sentence, Bridget, about what is the best way for a fantasy writer to craft a query letter? Is it stakes? Is it character? What are your quick tips, in less than a minute?
Yeah, I think it's character, conflict, and stakes. So those are the things you really want to get at. Any world building you can sort of fit in around those is really helpful. But I'm really trying to get a vibe for the world, not an actual explanation in the query. So you want to get right at who's the main character, what's most important to them, and how does the story force them to reevaluate their relationship with that, either to get it or to not get it, and what that means for them personally.
Well, I love to hear you say that, because so many fantasy writers want to start with, here is how everything in the world works. Oh yeah, and here's this person too. And I'm pleased to hear you say it's, yes, hooray for people.
Yeah, it's the person I'm going to be following, and I'm excited to learn about the world, but I don't need to have all the details of that until I start reading the book.
Hooray. Well, congratulations to you both. I mean, thank you so much for your notes. Alyssa, this is fantastic. I'm so happy that you are here. Thank you for volunteering. It was a brave and very cool thing to do. And yes, lots of love in the chat. You should go see.
All right, thank you guys.
All right. Thank you both so much. This was great. I mean, it is really, really hard to write queries. I think it's good for writers to know that we know that too. So yeah, thank you. Okay, Janessa, how are you doing? Have you chosen your favorite flash fiction prompt?
This is a really hard choice, Janessa. I don't.
No, they're so good.
I was blown away by the work, everybody. It's
There are so many amazing prompts. Yes. Do you want me to type the name in the chat or just say it out?
Yeah, why don't you say the name and then
Yes. It was Rebecca Ierulo.
how's it spelled?
Ierullo.
Okay, congratulations, Rebecca. So send us an email, academy@manuscriptwishlist.com, and we will get you set up. Yeah, there you are. Hi, you're welcome, Rebecca.
My name is Rebecca Ibrella, and here is the flash fiction I wrote for the prompt. Your main character falls into their favorite painting and everything comes alive. It wasn't her fault her father was a painter. It wasn't her fault that she loved watching the waves, the way that they clashed against each other. It wasn't her fault that she could hear them every time she looked at them, or that she felt the droplets along the bare skin of her arms and smelled seawater when she so much as glanced at the blue. But it was her fault that she went into the painting. Her father had told her not to touch it after all. He'd said it would bring her somewhere new, somewhere special. And truly, her father never lied. She shouldn't have doubted him, but she had, and she did. So when she was left gasping for air in the middle of a storm, it was her fault. The same sea she had studied and gazed at for 5 years waged war against her senses. Water buried her beneath its surface, and thunder sang out above her as lightning became her only source of light. She gasped and flailed, desperate to escape that water she had so dearly loved for just moments of air. A part of her knew it was futile, that she would drown in this painting her father had always warned her of, that it was her fault that she hadn't listened, that she had gotten lost in this world that should not exist by any of the rules of reality her mother had lectured her about so many times after finding her lost in a book when she ought to be sleeping. It was her fault for not listening, for caring more for the waves and the sea that didn't exist rather than the world around her. But it was an advantage, she'd tell her mother, her obsession with her father's last work, because no one else, not the investors, the visitors, or even the famed collectors who had claimed themselves experts, had been able to see the smallest, insignificant piece of brown in the corner that she had always seen. The ship. And that is the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. Thank you for listening.
Why did you choose that one? What stood out to you?
I really liked how Rebecca started off the story, and it basically was painting was something that the main character and their father loved to do. And her father used to always tell her, like, never touch the painting, you just don't know why. And she spent every day looking at the same painting until this one day happens. She finally touches it, and then she's transported into it. So I think even in that flash prompt, we're able to get kind of more of that background relationship of the main character, that father-daughter dynamic, this warning, and now her being transported into this new world in such a short amount of time. That really did it for me.
Yeah,
but there's so many hard to choose.
That rise
like
in tension,
10,
right?
Yeah, I had the top 10 that I was really going back and forth through.
Nessa, thank you so much. And that was a really fun prompt. I loved the idea of that. It yielded some really beautiful results.
Yeah.
Yay.
I was blown away. And I think it's so simple. If you're at home and you're just thinking, well, how can I revisit this? Having a deck of like tarot cards or something like that. You don't have to use them for tarot. You can just use them for the inspiration between the images and just pull them out. I've done that with my writing group, and it's so easy. Or just getting a bunch of images and just picking one randomly in a book can really help. Okay, next we have Kelly Van Sant with a special quiz show. The first person to answer each question correctly in the chat wins a query critique with a faculty agent or editor of their choice. Oh my gosh, these things stress me out.
Yeah, because they're so fast. Okay, so we hope you have your coffee on your desk. Writers, get your keyboards ready. And Kelly, take it away. So Kelly will ask each question. You will type the answer in the chat. Whoever gets it correctly first in the chat is the winner. Kelly, go for it.
All right. So I tried to throw a couple of easier ones in there with some trickier ones, but here we go. Question 1 is, which book won the 2023 Hugo Award for Best Novel? Don't see the answer yet. Nettle and Bone is correct. I think the first person who did that was Janelle Theus.
Yes.
That is the correct answer. Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher.
Congratulations. Send us an email when you win, academy@manuscriptwishlist.com. Okay, great.
Question number 2, I have 6. Question number 2, I kind of gave a bunch of hints at in the beginning when I was talking about what I'm looking for. So this is an easy one. Please name any 3 fantasy subgenres. Any that you like, just name 3. The first person I saw who did 3, oh, it's going by so fast. Oh my gosh. Vanished. Okay, the first person I saw to say 3 was Sarah Goerke. I'm sorry about that pronunciation, but you said epic, high, and historical, and those are all 3. I also see Dark Gothic Gaslamp, lots of other great ones, but Sarah, I think you were first.
Yeah, confirming I saw that first as well.
Yay, Sarah.
Question number 3. All right, this one's a little trickier. These are the opening lines of which fantasy novel? Quote, "Today he would become a god, his mother had told him so," end quote. Oh, I saw it. Where'd it go? Hang on, I saw it. Felix, I think you were the first one. It is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. Felix Barber, I think you were first there. Excellent. That's a phenomenal book. All right, this is an easy one. Hopefully, I think a lot of people will know this one, so get ready. In J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit, Gandalf opens the mines of Moria by speaking the Elvish word for friend. What is that word? Yes, okay, whoa. It is melon. It is with the double L, and I think the first person who typed got it right. I think that was Jenny Gossel. So that is correct. And I have 2 more questions. This question is, who was the first author to win Best Novel at the Hugo Awards 3 years in a row? Oh, here we go. Yes, I saw the answer for sure. It is N.K. Jemisin. And I think the first person was Felix Barber. Oh, and did I say The Hobbit when I meant The Fellowship of the Rings? I'm sorry if I said that, if I messed up my my Tolkien question. I apologize. I am a lifelong Tolkien fan. I should have gotten the correct one. All right, I have one last question. Which novel's magic system involves translating words from various languages onto bars of silver? And yeah, everybody got it right away. It is Babel, and I think Matt Lane was the first person to do it. So you guys are fast. I thought some of those would take longer, but you got them all.
Everyone is so incredibly well informed. I'm very impressed. Look at all of you doing your research. I love it. Well, congratulations to the winners. Please, again, send us an email, academy@manuscriptwishlist.com. Tell us what you won, and we will get those prize codes out to you. So meetings will go live with agents and editors for October. I believe it is, well, it is the first Thursday in October. I believe it's the 3rd. And yeah, you can use your code whenever it is good for you. No pressure. You don't have to do it immediately, but lots of nice agents waiting to talk with you. Hey, Kelly, thank you so much. This was a really cool quiz. I love it. I'd love for us to have a game show someday.
Yeah,
we
it
always
was fun.
We think about it all the time.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we want like some kind of weird effect. Like, you know how you can like dump gack on people or like, giant versions of things to play on. All those game shows from the 90s are total inspiration. Okay, so we have 10 minutes of Q&A. If I can invite all of our panelists back to come down and come on down like it's a game show and answer some questions. We have so many good questions in here. Oh my goodness. All right. Starting first up, we have what is the difference between fantasy and speculative? You can all jump in whenever you want.
Honestly, I kind of use speculative as a catch-all term, but also fantasy is like further into the genre, and speculative, like if I'm describing something as speculative rather than fantasy, it means that there are some magical elements, but I wouldn't really call it a fantasy novel.
We can do this as a lightning round. Okay. Can we get agents to break down acceptable word counts for fantasy and subgenres? There's so much conflicting information. What about fantasy versus epic versus romantasy?
Oh boy. I feel like this is my fault. Because I
Oh,
said I
Eric,
don't
we
like
can hear you,
100K
but
books.
not see you, just so you know.
Yeah, I know. I keep trying to turn it on. It says it won't. The host has stopped your video.
Sorry about that. Asked you to start your
Decided.
video.
Oh,
Okay, there you
hello.
go.
Oh, there we go. I mean, yeah, I do feel like that's my fault. I just happen to like under 100K books, but that is not the rule.
Yeah, for something that's like more contemporary, I would say up to, or like historical, I would say up to about 110. For something that's more epic, I don't blink until 125. 150 is a length that is acceptable if you need it all, but that is where I start deciding I'm not really interested in reading. But yeah, for me at least, it's a lot of it is about like whether it's justifying the length that it is.
Okay, we've got so many great questions here. Can you tell me more about comp titles? I'm having a really hard time finding books that closely resemble mine. How much of a problem is that?
Ooh,
Ooh, comp titles.
I have hot thoughts. Okay, you go,
Yeah,
Kelly.
no, Eric, go. I love your hot takes.
No, it's just like I feel like it's a mistake a lot of writers make where they think their comp title has to be the same book as their book. Like my book is just like this book. Then why did you write that book, right? So like it's you shouldn't do like my book is just like X. Try to make it more about like what's in your book, like my book's world building is you'll like my book if you like the world building of author and author, or you'll enjoy my novel if you enjoy the voice of this person and that person. And then you're perfectly fine.
This is a great question. What do you think about starting with action versus the world explanation?
Oh, I'd love to take this one. I always recommend, especially when you're writing genre fiction, that you do something that I call telling the story walking, which means that you're informing us about the world building and, the culture of your novel as the character is moving through that world. Like, I don't want to read a history book where someone sits me down and says, okay, 10 years ago, there was this king and now there's that king. And here's our, like, I don't want it to read like a textbook. I want your character to interact with the world around them. And through that, I glean details about how the world is constructed. So in terms of like starting with action or world building, I kind of think you're starting with both. And I don't mean like a big action scene where people are fighting or something, but a character who is doing something and is doing something that informs me about the world they live in.
False dichotomy. Kelly, I really like that phrase, telling the story walking. I think that's a good way of putting it.
Right. And if you're trying to tell your story and you can't describe it, then you need to render down that story so that you know exactly what it's talking to, which leads me into this great question. I've heard that a query is always supposed to end with a choice. The character must either X or Y. How important is that? How imperative?
It's an easy way to end a query, but you don't have to do it that way. It's basically how it works out. As long as you're getting in like what the stakes are for the character and what they're doing about it, that's all you need to convey. There's no like specific phrasing that we look for.
I think for me as well, if I'm ending a career, I want to kind of see or hear what happens if they fail. So just kind of like hiding more of those stakes. So if this is kind of the obstacle and the opposition, what happens if they don't complete this kind of task or quest or mission?
Okay, I apologize, but I'm very curious about this. And I don't know if there's an answer, but I'm very curious. Which fantasy subgenres are on the rise and which are on the decline? I apologized. I see your faces. I'm sorry.
We are deep in the reign of romantasy right now, which I assume that is going to be saturated sometime before too long. But people are still really interested in cozy fantasy as well. I don't know what's going to be next. I think this is the opportunity to write what you're really excited about and see if you can make the next trend.
Any other takers?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I agree. It's hard to argue with the current reign of romantasy. It's here and we're all loving it, or we're not, depending. But it's what a lot of people want. I agree that cozy is also a big thing right now. You know, as to what's next, it's really hard to predict that stuff. You know, I had mentioned that I want to see more like paranormal or urban fantasy. I'm kind of, it's been a long time and I'm kind of back in the mood for that kind of stuff. Will that have a next, you know, stratospheric rise? I don't know. But I think, you know, writing to trends is always tricky. I don't recommend it. I think write the book that you want to write and there will be a space for it. If you are always chasing trends, you know, by the time that you're ready to go on submission, you'll have missed the peak of it. So just write what you want to write. And if you want to write something trendy, by all means, go and do it. But don't write just for that reason.
The fantasy writers are so prolific. So if you've completed a trilogy, should you query for the whole trilogy or for the first book?
Yeah, I usually recommend not completing the trilogy before you have found a publishing deal for the first book. But if you've already done it, then yeah, I would pitch the first book and say that you have a trilogy for it.
Yes, my big worry whenever people say like the second and third book are done, that the writer might be too close to the work and not willing to do edits or change stuff. That might not be the case, but I would be a little worried. So, yeah.
Okay, how do you make your story stand out in the query pile? And I'm going to add an addendum. Is it word or world or character?
It's specifics for me. I see a lot of queries that all feel sort of samey. And so it's not necessarily world or character, it's what makes your book your book. And I just want to see that on the page.
I'm happy to hear you say that. Someone teases me because I'm always asking for more specificity in our panels. Thank you. And Dina, if you're listening, ha.
I was not coached.
What do you consider dark fantasy and when should we call our work that?
I think for me, when I look at dark fantasy, it's more genre blending. So I'm getting a little bit more horror elements. There's definitely going to be some sort of like underworld. There's a lot of death, which kind of speaks to me and what I talked to with my therapist, but that's my journey. And I think, yeah, so you're really kind of teetering those lines. I think a lot of more morally gray characters and something that's kind of like the main character isn't necessarily the good guy and being okay with that for me when I look at like more dark fantasy.
We have so many good questions here. Does a synopsis have to be strictly linear for fantasy?
I think your synopsis needs to follow the events of the book. So if, for example, your book has complicated timelines, I think your fantasy would also. But you know, if your book is sort of chronologically straightforward, then I would imagine that you would also want your fantasy to be that. So your synopsis, or your fantasy to be that, your synopsis. Your synopsis is basically just summarizing the events of the book. And I think you want to summarize them in the event that they occur on the page, not necessarily in the way that they occur timeline wise, if that makes sense.
Also, just to reassure everyone that synopses are a lot less important than you think they are. They are a tool for us to sort of see the big picture of this book in like 3 pages. They don't need to be like the most flawless, interesting, amazing document ever. It's impossible to actually get everything about a 100,000 word book in 3 pages, so it's fine.
And I've offered on books and then realized that I did not see a synopsis at all. These things happen. It's
I don't
okay.
even ask for one anymore.
Yeah, I think luckily they're phasing out. Okay, out of 4 chili peppers, how high a heat level do we need for something to be romantasy?
I think you can have romantasy with all different spice levels. I think the trend is like spicy is very trendy right now, but I think that spice level is independent of whether or not something is a romantasy. You can have a 1 pepper, you can have a 5 pepper. I don't, does it go higher than that? I don't know.
It's usually 4, but sure, if you end up with 10, I'm sure everyone will remember. Well, that is good to know. Okay, and that was our 10-minute limit of Q&A. Again, we want to respect your time. We know it's your lunch hour for a lot of you. Thank you so much for being here. Panelists, writers, we so appreciate this. This is such a wonderful thing to get to do with you. We're so grateful. Now it is time for prizes. Our first prize is 3 tickets, 1 ticket per winner, to our fantasy-only queries and pages feedback panel. This is with Agent Caitlin McDonald. It's October 15th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And yeah, this is the first time we're doing it, so we're very excited to have a single genre panel. If you win, please send us an email, academy@manuscriptwishlist.com. The first ticket winner is Michael Warren. Congratulations, Michael, with Contemporary Fantasy. The next winner is Courtney McCall, YA Fantasy. Congratulations, Courtney. And the third winner is Christine Michaud, I'm guessing, Cozy Fantasy. Congratulations to the 3 of you.
Yay.
Yay! Round of applause, everybody. And one of our best prizes today goes to a lucky writer who was kind enough to invite a friend. We like you. We love it when you bring your friends to things. The person who sent the invite will receive a query and first 10 pages consultation with a faculty agent or editor of their choice. The friend that received their invitation will get a query consultation with the faculty editor or agent of their choice. And you are all in the randomizer. And let's see, the winner is, I think we need a flourish here. All right, the winner is Karina Estrella, who invited, oh, I'm so sorry, T Loves Purple. Yes, so I am going to screenshot that. You both win a prize. I'll send you a note. Congratulations. And again, we are just so grateful to all of you. It's so nice to have this incredible community. I loved your flash fiction. I loved that you knew all the answers to the quizzes. I love that you're here and you're learning about your genre and you love your work and you're doing all of this great work to get yourself ready to be out there, to be a published author. We love good news. Please tell us your good news. We'd love to see you at the panel with Caitlin and with so many incredible events coming up in October. We have a goodie bag with a few surprises in it, so check your email in a few minutes. You'll see free classes, invites to our writing community, links to our agent and editor interviews on YouTube, and more. And to all of our panelists and our writers, thank you so much for joining us. Go forth and be magical. Thank you so much. We're so happy that we get to do this. Have a wonderful day. And as always, we are here to be your friends in the writing community. Take care, friends. Have a great rest of your day.